Hello there, this is Paranormal Investigation Stories number 7. This story will be of 2 investigations in the same place. We were at a cottage in Bradford, which will be named as Stony Cottage, just to protect the identity of the people who live there, or maybe live there now. A new family had moved in, and they began to experience all manner of paranormal issues. So much so that they decided to get in the medium Eddie Peace. And apparently Eddie went round and did an investigation himself there, seeing if he could pick anything up. And he suggested to Trish, the owner of the cottage, to contact Haunted Yorkshire Paranormal Research Group to come along and do an investigation. It was a very, very snowy night when we arrived in Bradford. We were a little bit late due to the condition of the roads. We were greeted by the owner, who showed us a photo that had been taken, and the photo was of the staircase in the house. Now the staircase, as we looked at it, was a solid stair, and it was panelled leading into the steps. But the photo that had been taken actually revealed a spindled staircase, and from between the spindles there was an image of a child looking down into the living area. It was a very freaky photo, really, considering that it was a completely different staircase now. Anyway, we decided to have a wander around and look around the house, and I did feel drawn to go up into the upper room. It was on the 3rd floor, and I became quite aware of a young lad in there, and I began to communicate with him. And he told me certain things, and I believe that he told me that upper room is where he spent most of the time, because he felt it was his safe place, as he had been bullied for quite a long time by other people, older people. As I was talking to him, I became aware of a really bad pain in the neck area. Really bad, as though there'd been some form of injury or accident. I thanked him for what he said to me and came back downstairs, and another medium and I went into a room, and we were both aware of a lady who was looking out through a window into a garden. And with the spirit of this woman there seemed to be a great sadness, a feeling of grief and bereavement. She wasn't grounded there, but she did return there at various anniversary dates, just in visitation. It's quite a sad situation, really. Went into another room, and I became aware that right there on the bed in front of me was a big black dog, round the size of a Great Dane. And as I looked into its eyes, just as quickly as it appeared, it vanished again, gone. We went back downstairs, and Trish, the owner of the house, said that several people had said in the past that they had seen this big black dog in the house. So it was nice once again to get the confirmation. And I shall have to read some notes now, because so much happened that I've forgotten quite a bit of it. I returned up to the upper floor to contact the boy again. And on entering the bedroom, I noticed that he was there, and he had quite a sad look in his eye. he seemed as though he didn't want to talk anymore at this particular point. So I bade him farewell again and we went downstairs to the lounge. And both Tracy and myself were aware of how different the cottage was. We were seeing the cottage as it had been 100 years ago, where there was a gentleman who could only be described as perhaps looking like Fred Dibner, with the braces, the collarless shirt, etc., etc. He was stood in the door looking into the room, and he slowly walked over into the room, to the fireplace, where he lit a pipe which he'd just packed with thick twist tobacco, which was like rope. Both Tracy and I noted that the fireplace that he was stood in was now completely different. Everything had been changed. The staircase had been changed from one side of the room to the other, and on entry through the door there should have been a corridor, or used to be a corridor, and that was no longer there. It had been, as I say, completely changed. We asked the owner about the changes, and she told us that there had been very many over the years, because it used to actually be a basket weaving textile mill, and it was one big building which had been modernised and altered into 3 new living accommodations, which was the reason that we were seeing everything as it originally was. We thanked her for letting us look round and asked if we could come and visit again, because there were so many things that seemed unresolved that we decided to visit the building again. On returning this time, Tracy was no longer with the group. She had left. We started at 2100 hours, and the current owners were so afraid of the events that had been happening around them that they had actually decided to move, and they would be leaving that property within the next 2 weeks, which was quite sad really, and it would have been an amazing place to be able to rent for a few months, just to check out for yourself what was going on. There was just so much activity. The owner Trish told us that the night prior to our going to the second investigation, that she had a lot of ornaments on the window sill in her bedroom, and when she woke up in the morning all those ornaments had been taken and they'd all been hidden under a bed, which really freaked her out again. She said that she had a cat which was too afraid to go up to the 3rd floor, which is the floor where I had seen the black dog. There had also been footsteps heard in the staircase, accompanied by a very icy blast. An icy blast which appeared to cut right through them if they stood in the stairwell. I went out onto the top floor again, while Dawn and another investigator were on the 2nd floor. One of them called out and said, "Is there anybody there? And if there is, please can you make a sound?" And at this point, the television turned itself on. I heard the screams and came back down, and everything was absolutely fine. But they were in shock. And Trish told us that the television quite often turned itself on, and the clock radio too, and sometimes even be turned off altogether by some ghostly unseen hand. And she was absolutely terrified of her own bedroom. While we were there, we also heard a scraping sound or a dragging sound from another room, and a very strong energy again standing on the top floor. As I walked back up to the top floor to see what was going on, I could hear the names of 3 boys. There were Samuel, Joshua and George. And the surname came to me of Whatmuff. And again Trish confirmed that the Whatmuff family had indeed lived in that property, and she did have the 3 sons. The owner confirmed this, and Samuel, I believe, was the lad that was seen looking through the spindles of the stair at the family. I also believe that he actually died by falling down the stairs, and he broke his neck, which explains why I felt the pain across my neck while I was up in the room with him. There was also this strong presence. There was a figure which was standing in the corner of the room. Dawn said that she could also see the shape of a person in this area, which people who work in the paranormal will explain to you is called super black, and the darkness that you see suddenly becomes much more intense, a tremendous in its depth. It's just an all-encompassing darkness. From there we went back downstairs, and one of the owner's friends called out and asked, has anyone opened any drawers in Trisha's bedroom? And of course the answer was no, nobody had opened any. And as we shut the drawers, that was the same scraping or dragging sound that we had heard previously. So we knew that something was going on and something had actually opened the drawers. So we decided to place a trigger object in the room and a camera trained on it to see if anything came along to move it. If I remember rightly, it was an old penny which we had drawn round and left on a blank sheet of paper. And if it had been moved, it would have been moved away from the pencil mark. We locked the door and there was no result, nothing happened at all. No more drawers opened or anything like that. After the short break, we went back up to the top floor, and I became aware of a man, and he was just talking absolute nonsense, gibberish. And I had a feeling that he had been a patient at Byerley Hall Mental Hospital. He made no sense, and I believe that he was a labourer within the mill back in the day when it was running. Several people said that they could also smell chemicals, and there were a few light anomalies flashing around, and we believed that the chemical smells were probably in line with the fact that it was a textile basket weaving mill for several hundred years prior to it becoming this living accommodation. The investigation was drawing to a close, and we were quite disappointed that we wouldn't be able to return to see if we could move any of these spirit people on, to see what was going on. I know Trish and her family did move out because the fear of what was going on in there was far too much. Even though, to be fair, there was nothing to be scared of. You know, nothing to be scared of at all. Samuel was there. He was the one, as I say, was looking through the spindles on the staircase. The lady who was filled with grief and bereavement, I believe that to be his mother. But she only visited the house on occasions of anniversaries, such as the anniversary of his death, his birthday, etc., etc. The guy upstairs with the mental problems, he too was just a visitor. He just popped in and out, carrying on his life as he always had done, within the mill, then going away, then returning. Nothing at all to be afraid of. I do know that there's a school of thought that when there is a big black dog seen, that it instantly creates a feeling of unease, because the media, etc., have said that this is a shook. It's known as a shook, and it is a forebearer of bad news and indeed devastation to many places. But that was the end of the investigation at Stoney Cottage. It was a very, very interesting place to be. And I suppose the most interesting part of it was when the television actually turned itself on to command. You know, you can't make that up. It just happened. And it was really, really interesting. A good place to be. Thank you again for listening. The next one I'm going to do, which will be number 8, will be from an old Victorian house in Halifax. And this old Victorian house held a secret for many years. There was certainly a skeleton in the closet. I'll leave you with that for now. Thank you so much for listening again. And if you like what you hear, please subscribe, click like, etc. Namaste.